Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving headfirst into a pretty fascinating and, let's be honest, often heated cultural crossroads, the relationship between the Christian faith and Japanese animation. Anime. This is a topic that brings up some seriously passionate arguments from all sides. So let's break down what's really being said.
So let's kick things off with a comment that pretty much set the internet on fire. Conservative commentator Matt Walsh just comes out and declares, quote, "From my vantage point, anime is satanic." I mean, wow, a super bold and for a lot of people, a really inflammatory take that, it definitely got people talking. But then, just as quickly as it all started, the story takes a pretty funny turn. Walsh himself comes back and clarifies that, he doesn't actually have an argument for this. He admitted it was, and I'm quoting here, as the kids say, a vibe. So, what was going on? He was basically making a deliberately over-the-top joke. The point wasn't to actually condemn cartoons, but to poke fun at how online discourse can blow up any random comment into this huge controversy. And that whole episode actually brings up a way more interesting question. Once you clear away all the jokes and the outrage bait, what are the real, thoughtful, serious arguments that Christians are making about anime? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into.
All right, so first up, let's look at the side of caution. A lot of Christian voices raise some pretty significant concerns about potential spiritual pitfalls they see in anime. They mostly focus on two big areas: the encouragement of sin and the risk of idolatry.
Okay, check this out. It's a great way to break down a single character trait, right? Ambition. On one hand, you've got this idea of a God-centered ambition, where your drive is all about serving others. But then, on the other hand, you have this worldly ambition, the kind that's all driven by pride and wanting personal glory for yourself.
So the crucial point really boils down to this. Why is a character ambitious? Are they doing it for some greater good, or is it all about them? A perfect example that gets brought up a lot is the character Isagi from Blue Lock. His whole goal, to be the best striker in the world, is explicitly fueled by this massive ego. And from a critical perspective, that kind of prideful, self-centered ambition is seen as basically glorifying sinful values.
Okay, the next big concern you hear is idolatry. And look, we're not just talking about having a shelf full of figurines, though that can be part of the conversation. The deeper issue, as this quote explains so well, is really about what's going on in your heart. Idolatry is when anything, a hobby, a person, even a fictional character, starts to take priority over God in your life. That collection of stuff on the outside, it's seen as just a symptom of what's happening on the inside. And this really ties into the other common warnings, which come straight out of Scripture. In the book of 1 John, it warns against three things: the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And critics will point out that, some anime studios seem to intentionally use, let's say, lustful character designs, specifically to attract more viewers. It basically turns a spiritual concern into a straight-up commercial strategy. But hold on, because that is far from the whole story. Let's flip the coin and look at the other side of this conversation. This is where many Christians see anime not as a danger, but as a genuinely powerful tool for showing virtue and teaching some really positive lessons.
So the core of this whole perspective is that stories are just powerful. Think about it. Jesus himself used parables, right? These simple stories with really deep meanings to teach these profound spiritual truths. And so many people argue that the stories in anime can kind of work the same way, like modern-day parables. They can get across complex moral and ethical lessons through characters and plots that really grab you. And there are tons of examples. I mean, look at a show like Claned. It tells this incredibly powerful story about selfless love and the really hard work of reconciling with your family. Or take Vinland Saga, where the main character has to learn to completely reject a life of violence and embrace forgiveness. You've got Frieren, which gives this beautiful lesson on cherishing the time we have. Even a show like Lycoris Recoil is pointed to as modeling a kind of radical, Christ-like love for your enemies. So the big takeaway from this side of the argument is that a lot of popular anime actually promote virtues that line up really well with Christian values. I mean, a central theme you see in countless shows is that a true hero isn't defined by their power, but by their willingness to sacrifice themselves for other people. And, that's a concept that lies at the absolute heart of the Christian faith. Okay, so we've got these two pretty different views, right? One of warning, one of virtue. So how in the world are you supposed to navigate all this? Well, what's interesting is that the sources don't just give you a simple watch this, don't watch that list. Instead, they suggest a framework for personal discernment. And this isn't about some rigid set of rules. It's more like a series of really personal questions you have to ask yourself. Things like, does this show trigger sinful thoughts in me?
whether that's lust or pride? Is it becoming an idol in my life? Eating up time and attention that should really belong to God? Is it making my personal walk with God weaker? And maybe the most important one, am I being totally 100% honest with myself about the impact it's having on me?
Ultimately, it all boils down to this concept of the stumbling block, which actually comes from the Apostle Paul's writings in the Bible. The idea is simple. What might be a totally harmless piece of entertainment for your friend could be a genuine spiritual danger for you, all based on your own personal struggles and weaknesses. It just takes a lot of self-awareness and honesty to figure out that difference for yourself.
So as we start to wrap this up, it becomes pretty clear that this whole conversation, this whole big debate about anime, it's really a stand-in for a much, much larger question about how faith interacts with modern culture in general. I mean, think about it. The principles we've been talking about, checking for sinful triggers, listening to your conscience, examining your heart for idols, understanding your own unique stumbling blocks, none of that is just about anime, right? It applies to, well, everything we consume.
And that kind of leaves us with one final, maybe provocative thought to chew on. If you were to apply this exact same level of intentional, honest discernment to all the music you listen to, all the movies you watch, all the shows you binge every single day, what do you think you might discover about yourself and about your relationship with the entertainment you love?